Stargate SG-1 started out on Showtime. That's why we had that naked bit in the premiere episode. But Showtime decided to cancel the show with Season 5. But the series survived by moving to the Sci-Fi Channel, back when they actually helped rescue science fiction shows from cancellation, and back when they showed science fiction, and didn't have a stupid name. The Stargate people had been preparing to do a feature film before that happened, but naturally the return put that on hold. Eventually, through a bunch of false starts, the idea was finally made to use the Atlantis idea that they had been cooking up with this to make a proposed spin-off show, which is how we got Stargate Atlantis. If you aren't familiar with it, don't worry. It's like SG-1, only trading in the gritty for the more high-tech. Now, this series is building off of a significant season-ending event. I'm going to do my best to talk around that issue so as not to reveal what actually happened. Anyway, long, long ago, in a galaxy far, far away, actually slightly before that, here in Antarctica, the city of Atlantis belongs to the Ancients. And because the Ancients never do anything the mundane way, they flew off to that other galaxy in their flying city, because Laputa is nothing but a bunch of posers. Today, what we are left with has been found by the Stargate people and is under intense scrutiny, while Dr. Elizabeth Weir handles things. Hey, you look different. Did you dye your hair? She's checking up on the work of Dr. Rodney McKay and the subject of his work, Dr. Carson Beckett. There's more doctors here than Grey's Anatomy. Rodney's trying to get Carson to use the comfy chair. It responds to something called the ancient gene that some of us inherited from them because, well, the ancients were dirty, dirty people. The comfy chair discussion is interrupted by Dr. Daniel Jackson, who needs to gather them for something else. Doctor, and how are you, Phil? Blow me. They've been looking for the city of Atlantis. Now, to get this out there, Plato talked about Atlantis in a fictional context. Looking for Atlantis is like looking for Oz or Wonderland or a reasonably priced convenience store. They're places that just don't exist. Their approach seems to be in this show that Atlantis did exist, then fell into legend and inspired Plato's tale. I mean, sure, if you're going to have a city that can fly to another galaxy, I'm going to swallow that legend thing too. Anyway, Daniel found the gate address for the city. It requires 8 symbols and not 7 because it's special. In case you're curious, it looks like there are 2 more chevrons on the bottom of the gate for these situations. 8 for extra galaxies, and 9 if you plan to transport Julia Benson due to the strength of her fan service field. After the credits, General Jack O'Neill puts in his guest appearance to assure us that this is a genuine Stargate show by riding in a helicopter with Major John Shepard, shooting the breeze when Carson accidentally shoots off a drone. It's not his fault. He was told to sit in the comfy chair despite his worries that something would wind up firing off, and, well, that's exactly what happened. So ground control to Major John, there is an angry alien sperm trying to fertilize your helicopter. You're going to need to do some of those fancy maneuvers, at least until Carson can find a way to shut this thing down with the power of his Scottish charm. Whew, close call. Jack's life insurance only covers death by alien worms, not alien squid. Anyway, Atlantis, we know where it is now. Mind if we go, Dad, huh, please? The only snag is that they need to have a 0-point module to generate enough power. ZPM for short, or ZPM, depending on where you're from.
He's Canadian.
So, you found the lost city of Atlantis, eh, hoser? One thing I don't understand, though, is that how do you sing the alphabet song over there? Because V and Z don't rhyme. Rodney, by the way, is one of the characters brought over from SG-1. He had twice before been brought in to the Stargate program as an expert advisor. He's an extremely brilliant jackass with a deadly allergy to citrus. Dr. Weir here was in command of SG-1 briefly, and she seems to be fine with lemons. And you might recognize Connor is played by the same guy who was the young version of Ernest in our last SG-1 review, Torment of Tantalus. Oh, speaking of Carson, Major Shepard overhears him talking about the comfy chair and is annoyed about his whole accidentally nearly killing him thing. But he can't help but be intrigued by all this. Major Shepard may be just the pilot, so he knows crap all about the Stargate and aliens and all that, but Carson seems happy to fill him in. While he's slowly learning the greatest secret since Upton Sinclair told us how sausage is made, Jack is in need of convincing on giving up the power source to the comfy chair for what might well be a one-way trip, unless they could find another ZPM on the other side. Speaking of which, against Carson's advice, Major Shepard insists on sitting in it. It is a very comfortable chair, you have to admit, and he seems to be really, really super compatible with the thing.
Who is this?
I said don't touch anything.
Well, Weir is sold on bringing Major Shepard if Jack will greenlight the expedition. And being a nice guy, he greenlights it and talks him into agreeing to go along, well, basically by saying if he doesn't, he's a big pussy. If you can't tell, this is in some ways like Voyager. I'll be doing a side-by-side later this month, but notable is the pilot episode. There's a goodbye from the person in charge to her fiancé. In this case, a pre-recorded message that she's not on a diplomatic mission. She's actually on her way to another galaxy. Just a little white lie there. We'll see how that works out. It's a long distance relationship. So all that means now is to get ready to go. Jack's needed here for SG-1, so it's going to have to be Colonel Sumner. Although this is a bit different from the original Stargate mission. This is an international mission, and while it has military personnel, it is also under Dr. Weir's leadership, a civilian rather than a military commander. Hopefully Sumner will follow her leadership, but I'm concerned. He looks like he might change at any moment. He's also giving Major Shepard the cold shoulder because he disobeyed orders in Afghanistan in an attempt to rescue people. And what's worse, he screwed it up, earning him a black mark and ejection from the Rambo Club for Macho Heroes. But Weir gives a speech for them about what they're going to do and how dangerous it might be, but also how wonderful.
I'd like to offer you all one last chance to withdraw your participation.
Bark, bark. Oh, you can go. Bark, 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 bark. Well, time to see what happens. They lock on and send a malp through, and everything looks kinda okay. The problem is they can't risk shutting down, and they don't know how long they can maintain power, so it calls for a snap judgment. Whilst not immediately lethal, this could very well be inside a structure that's been encased in rock a mile below the planet's surface by now, where they'll face a slow, grim death. Or it could be perfectly fine. There's just no way to know, and no time to weigh the options. We need to make a decision now. Actually, that's kind of just not even thought about. They see it's immediately safe, so F it, we're going through. Dr. Weir insists on going through with Sumner up front. She may officially be in charge, but as a civilian and, well, not to put too fine a point on it, a woman, she runs the risk of being perceived as being too weak to make the big decisions. I mean, she is going in there with battle-hardened soldiers who are used to making tough calls in difficult situations. And if she presents a picture like she might not be up to that task, like she's too soft, like she's indecisive, like she's not courageous, they might not follow her leadership at a critical time. And so what she is doing is demonstrating that she is brave enough for any of this stuff, and that any caution on her part is the wisdom of leadership, and not that she's craven. On the other side of the Stargate is Fancy Town, great big room with lots of hallways and nifty little buttons that you can push. I make the best GM. Everyone's excited about where they're going to go from here, what they're going to find. Well, except for Colonel Sourpuss, obviously, but that's made up for by General O'Neill's optimism, who even sends through a gigantic bottle of champagne. Either that or Dr. Weir is like 4 feet tall. Prepare to explore Atlantis! And someone bring me a phone book to sit on! But this is like living a video game. Huge alien base with technology ripe for the taking. I mean, there are even small minivan-like spaceships. The only thing to worry about is that it's dark and abandoned. So that's going to mean some horrific nightmare is taken over, and you're going to need to eventually be running through, picking up ammo, and stepping on med packs until you blow this place up while you escape in one of those little ships. And that's why video games are awesome. Speaking of which, Atlantis is indeed at the bottom of the sea, and while it's a little murky, it looks pretty good, too. No sign of any splicers that are going to try to kill us in the name of capitalism. Although it's still early in this video game, and we have crises to solve. Carson's found a hologram that explains why the city is abandoned. The ancients awoke a power that could rival even their own. And these were people who built Stargate networks, flew cities across galaxies, and in their spare time ascended to a higher plane of existence. So these dudes are bound to be bad news. In the end, they sank the city beneath the ocean, programmed the gate network so that only Atlantis could link back to our galaxy. I mean, they say Earth, but I assume they had the sense to make sure they couldn't go to any gate in the Milky Way, so, otherwise that would be kind of stupid. Our victory is that the enemy shall be slightly inconvenienced in their destruction of humanity. And after that, they left for good. Of course, that was like 10,000 years ago. Who knows if these bad guys even exist anymore? In the meantime, though, there are problems in the here and now. Power is dropping across the city because it turns out if you leave a force shield running for an ice age or so, it starts to drain the batteries a little bit. And with them turning everything back on, well, power is being consumed even faster. Soon the shield is going to collapse, and after that, I hope one of you brought an ark. How will we deal with this? We'll find out tomorrow in our second part of Rising.
This isn't a long trip, so I'll be as succinct as possible.